Hey there, everybody. How's it going? Welcome back to another awesome episode of On the Throttle with Jacqui Van Ham and my buddy Josh out here bringing you all the breaking news in motorcycles and power sports like we do every single week. We are at episode, what, Josh, 111, bringing you all of the news out here, talking about all the things going on in bike land. So for this week's show, I have got, it seems like, Josh, Triumph Motorcycles is burning down the internet this week. In my neck of the woods, I've got some super top secret spy photos. You know how much I love that. And we're going to talk a little bit about the first date. Is it true love between Marc Marquez and Ducati? Josh, what you got going on in your neck of the woods?
Well, we're just going to call this a triumphant episode because I am talking about the new Triumph dirt bike that I think to the point now that you're right. They've been talking about it so long that it already needs an update and it hasn't been released yet. And then the other thing that I'm going to talk about is something interesting happened with Benelli here in the US. Yeah.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear
I
about
got
the
to tease.
details about those two fascinating stories, but we're all going to have to wait after this word from our sponsor. Welcome back, everybody. So as I mentioned at the top of the program, this week's show, the first handful of stories are talking all things Triumph motorcycle in this triumphant episode, as Josh has already called it. And my first story for today is talking about some spy pics. And I love spy pics. I love behind the scenes. I love getting the very first details of bikes before they even have kind of been announced yet. I love it. These details are coming from the folks over in India is who broke the story, which makes perfect sense because Triumph Motorcycles, as you may or may not be aware, is making a handful of very cool 400cc machines in partnership with Bajaj. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about this awesome story. These spy photos on your screen right now, get a good eyeful of that because there is a rumor that on the heels of breaking the news that the Thruxton is dead earlier this summer, well, this appears to be a 400cc Thruxton. Let's go ahead and jump on into the story. A new Triumph Speed 400 RR is what it's being referred to is coming with a neo-retro aesthetic characterized by that little semi-fairing that embraces the front headlight and extends to the bottom of the tank. It shares the engine and chassis with the Speed 400 and Scrambler 400, and there is a handful of spy photos floating around the internet if you know where to look, and these are them on your screen right now. Spy photos reveal what could be a new Triumph Speed 400 RR, new model, thanks to which the Hinckley company could bring cafe racers into the 400cc segment. The motorbike pinched during road tests presents itself with a look inspired by that of its older sister, the Speed Triple 1200 RR, with that kind of retro aesthetic, that really nice, really sharp fairing on it. There's no technical data yet, but we imagine that the new Speed 400 RR will share the same platform with the Speed 400 and Scrambler 400, which is that 398cc liquid-cooled single cylinder with 40 horsepower and 37 foot-pound of torque. Double cradle made of steel tubes. Suspension looks the same. Yada, yada, yada. This looks like a real extension of this 400 class family that Triumph launched earlier this year that has really been burning down the internet. A lot of folks are really excited about these 400cc bikes. The earlier versions of this, I think I threw a slide in there, Ashley. If you keep on going through, you'll see a pair of bikes, and it's the Speed 400 and then that Scrambler 400 with the brown seat. Really, really slick. There we go on your screen right now. These two guys really set the internet on fire when these were launched a handful of months ago, and I don't blame folks for being up in arms about it because these are so cool and sharp and just have oozing tons of style, but in that smaller 400cc segment. I cannot wait to ride these. I cannot wait for these to land in the US. I can't wait to ride these myself. And now it appears a Cafe Racer version is going to be rounding out this family tree. Josh, what do you think about the potential double R/400 Thruxton?
Slash whatever else other things that they're going to put around it. No, I mean, to me, if they've got a motor that is going to be in that range, that's going to be, there's so many good things about stuff in that range. Because first off, it's inexpensive. So it's easy to get into. Second off, they're fun. It is that right size fun. It's fast enough to get you into trouble, but not so fast that you're instantly going to be losing your license. So if they can take and lean on some of their styling cues that they've built so much time and effort into to do stuff like that, by all means, capitalize on that stuff and roll with it. To me, I think it's a great move. Look, motorcycles for years, for decades, same engine in a multitude of platforms. They may change the cams, change compression, whatever. But if you can throw a fairing on this and appeal to a different audience, I'm game.
Yeah, why not, right? So to me, I find this really fascinating. Again, when the 400s first came out, I was catching a lot of noise and excitement, not from new motorcyclists necessarily. I was catching a lot of noise and excitement from totally very established motorcyclists who were eyeballing these as something fun to go play in the dirt or ride around downtown, ride around in town on, something smaller, something lighter, something more nimble, agile, and cheaper. So there's a lot of excitement right now about around this 400cc platform. And you're right, Triumph is just oozing style. So I love that they're embracing this kind of cafe racer vibe. I think this is such a slam dunk, great fit, really highly competitive with like the BMW 310R and a handful of those other 300cc kind of like sport bike looking bikes. I think that this is a really potentially interesting competitor in that segment. All right, Josh, now what do you got going on for your Triumph story for today?
Triumph, I believe, like I said, they had possibly alluded to maybe someday releasing a dirt bike. And I took so long to say it because that still doesn't do justice to what Triumph did to everyone. But this is finally the TF250. This is the X version. So this is the motocross version. This bike is powered by an all new, of course, because they didn't have one before, 250cc four-stroke engine with a forged aluminum piston in it, titanium valves, diamond-like carbon low friction coatings, lightweight magnesium covers, and an Exity Belleville clutch. Now, with this, there is something kind of interesting because, hey, there's always that question, is there an app for that? And yes, there is an app for that. There is what they are calling their MX Pro Tune app. It enables you to, in real time, change maps from your phone. There's also a few buttons on the handlebars that you can do that with. Now, this uses a high-strength aluminum chassis. Obviously, they're trying to keep the weight down. KYB suspension, 48 millimeter AOS coil forks up front, three-way adjustable piggyback coil, rear shock. Front brakes are Brembo twin 24-inch pistons. Wow, 44 would be huge. It's a 260 millimeter rotor, a single 26 millimeter piston out back, grabbing a hold of a 220 millimeter rotor. Dirt Star 7000 series aluminum wheels. Pirelli Scorpion MX32 tires. The seat height is 37.8 inches. The wet weight is 200. I know you're going to groan for this. The rest of us that ride bikes like this don't care. The wet weight is 229 pounds. Now, it is available to order as of now from Triumph motocross dealers starting at $9,995 or $5 shy of $10,000. Or if you're Canadian, it is $11,495, eh? The TF250X has a number of optional extras, including you can get an Akrapovic full titanium exhaust, a performance gripper seat and gripper seat cover. I don't know what the difference with the seat and seat cover is, but that's what the press release said. The electronics also can include they're calling it the XT Rig whole shot device and an Athena LC GPA launch control module. Now, on top of this, they also, why go halfway with this? You can dress up in full Triumph fanboydom. There is a full line from Alpine Stars, which is set up for this in both motocross and enduro gear. They are going to field a full factory supported team in the 2024 MX2 World Championship using the TF250X. Now, fun facts, this is their first motocross bike in over 50 years, which is a very long time. Thankfully, I'm still less than 50 years old, so I don't remember this. And the big thing, Barely, yes. Hey, it's less than it is there. The bike is expected to be delivered in late spring 2024. To me, I mean, when you look at graphics stuff like this, it looks like a great bike on paper. They've got some great parts in it. Um, Time's gonna tell when we finally get butts in seats on this thing.
Mhm.
How it's going to work. Are you planning on like a stool to if you get a ride
Yeah.
on this?
Yeah, I don't even think a stool is gonna cover it, dude. I think I need a full tilt, like a frame ladder, like to ride this beast.
Yeah,
No, all jokes aside, I'm so torn on this, Josh. First of all, it was the world's longest motorcycle tease. There's that.
correct.
Secondly, the fact that I am one of the part of the motorcycling community who, when I think Triumph, I think retro bikes. Now, is there a huge chunk of Triumph owners who do not think retro bikes whatsoever? Absolutely. There's tons
Sure.
of Tiger owners. There's tons of Triple owners. There's they're in a lot of different segments. I get it, but in my mind, Triumph is retro bikes. So to me, this is so foreign. This is so off the script. This is so out in left field. I've got a really hard time wrapping my mind around it, other than being a marketing exercise, design exercise. I
I have a
just,
question
I
for you
just
on
don't
that,
know.
though.
Yeah,
I have a big question for you on that. Looking at sales numbers, how's that worked for Harley recently? And that to me is a big part of the reason why Triumph has said, look, we need to get younger people, and there's nothing better than sticking a 12-year-old on the seat of a 250 and saying, dude, you love Triumph. When you look at the market, when you said to the marketing behind this,
yeah,
put them in that, get them as Triumph fans early, because some of
yeah,
the older ones are starting to age out. So I see that as a counterpoint to it. I totally get what
yeah,
you're saying, though. Triumph, they've got a vibe, they've got an aesthetic that, I mean, you see so much of it and you're like, that's a Triumph. This, I mean, if you made it red, it was a Honda. If you made it green, it's a Kawasaki. So I totally am with you on that, but I am glad to see that they are going for it.
Oh yeah, I'm not dinging them. I mean, other than the world's longest tease out, I'm not dinging them
Correct.
for creating the bike and jumping into different segments. It's just a little tough for me to wrap my mind around it. But you completely nailed it. You have to be in every segment. You have to be in every space
Yeah.
in order to capture all sorts of different people and younger people and yada yada yada. Marketing, marketing, speak, marketing, speak. Anyway,
Amen.
congratulations! It exists. It's real. It's not a unicorn any longer, and I cannot wait. Actually, Josh, honestly, I cannot wait to see how this does out there on the track and
Same.
competitively. That is the proof in the pudding that I'm going to need to see. Now, with all
Agreed.
of that, my next story is talking about the super romantic first date between Marc Marquez and Ducati. But we're going to have to wait for that story after this word from our mid-show partner.
Hey, what's up, Power Sports and Harley Davidson dealerships? Are your local SEO rankings buried deeper than a secret stash from moonshine? I'm Joe here to turbocharge your journey to sell more fun without breaking a sweat. Here's a tip. Claim your Google My Business faster than you'd claim that last cold beer at a summer rally, and make sure to keep it up to date. Did you know you can sync your website's inventory to your Google My Business posts? It's the equivalent of doing burnouts in front of a crowd. If you're intrigued, click the link on the banner so we can kick some digital asphalt together, and stay tuned for more pit stop pointers.
Thanks to our friends at Pit Stop Pointers. Now, my next story is going to be talking a little bit about Marc Marquez, who we broke the story or chatted about it a handful of weeks, months-ish ago, about him leaving Honda, which is a real coup over in MotoGP land because he's been very, very comfortable, roosted up over there for a very, 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 very long time. So it was a real shocker to hear that he has been very unhappy the last year plus with the bike, and he's not getting the changes he wanted. He was kind of stamping his feet and trying to make noise, hoping something would happen. It did not happen, and so he cut his contract and dipped on out of there. And he jumped over to the folks over at Gresini Ducati, where they had one of their very first testing days. And did it go swimmingly well? First of all, Josh, I have to point out, of course, the absolutely very, very cool livery on this bike. It's giving real like Spider-Man vibes, and I am here for it. And let's go ahead and chat a little bit about the story about him leaving. He did give us a couple of little quotes and things in a handful of interviews post testing day. It has not been a farewell with Honda. It was a see you later. I don't want to close that door or any other, said Marc Marquez during the testing weekend at Valencia. He arrived half an hour after the official track opening wearing a fancy black and white down jacket and, above all, a huge smile on his face. The target is to return smiling, having fun on the bike, and riding with a more natural flow, he said. I want to return leading without so much stress, but we have to be realistic because I haven't won a race in the last 2 years with Honda. Woo! Mission accomplished. Happy as a kid in a toy shop, Marquez looked immediately comfortable on the bike, riding super smooth. He was just off of the pace by 0.171 second, off of the best pace of Maverick Vinales, who was on that Aprilia RSGP, and led the day with a 1:29.253. Changing bikes after 10 years was not easy. Jorge Lorenzo did the same thing, passing from Yamaha to Honda and then to Ducati, but it's a different machine at that time. Each rider is different, but we have to say that adaptation is more difficult when the bike is not so competitive. A quote from veteran Danny Pedrosa, who rode with Honda for his entire MotoGP career and also had some struggles. He switched to KTM afterward as a test rider and has had a fantastic time riding with the folks at KTM. Is it just a Honda problem? Is it just a Honda issue with that bike? Anyway, Marquez had a great day. There was a lot of development going on, a lot of chat. Marquez also could be helpful in the development of the bike. I listened to all the riders in the same way, says one of the teammates from Ducati. Our target is to improve the bike. For example, if the machine has an issue that the factory rider doesn't point out and I succeed to fix it, I'm sure that all the riders will benefit from it, even the official team. I listened to all the riders and I'll continue to do it. So for sure, Marquez had a great time. Like I said, he was barely off of the pace, but does he regret leaving Honda? I know that Honda will return to winning, with or without me, Marquez said on the evening of his last race with the HRC colors. The Spaniard has maintained a good relationship with Honda. There's always been great respect on both sides, Marquez said. The reason is none other than that both Honda and Marc believe, suspect, and intuit that their paths come together again, because he said, it will depend if I will be fast again, so more doors will be open for me. So that is what's going on here at the very beginning of Marc Marquez's brand new page, brand new chapter with the folks over at Gresini Ducati. Josh, are you looking forward to this next coming season of MotoGP?
I am.
Moto Ducati GP, as it's called.
Correct. So it's interesting to me because Honda has gone through this in the past. I believe it was either the late 90s, early 2000s. They made a bike that was too stiff. The engineers didn't listen to the racers. And the problem is when with race cars, you can make a car stiff and then you adjust for it in the suspension. With a motorcycle, you cannot do that because when it's pitched over at a 60-degree angle, it is the chassis flex that is going to take up any bumps or anything like that. So if you make it too stiff because the engineers take over, then you've got a bike that has a tendency to lose the front end mid-turn. Did we ever see anyone do that? Did we see? Yeah. So that to me is the problem. It was, and when you look at things too, when I was reading something else that Honda took their foot off the gas in terms of development when Marquez was basically out for the season because he was their number one feedback guy. So that all being said, Honda is a step behind, and they tried to engineer their way out of a problem instead of feel their way out of a problem. And unfortunately, if you lose feeling like that, you're going to end up going backwards. I mean, Jeremy McGrath talks about, it's why he left Honda in 97. That CR250 that came out with the aluminum frame, he's like, it was unrideable. It was far too stiff because of the same thing. It wouldn't hook up in a turn. So same thing with this. It's going to be interesting to see what Honda does to recover. I don't want to say they need to start from scratch, but they need to go close to it.
Yeah, agreed. I'm really, really very excited for this next coming season because I think this is just going to really put the screws to Honda, and really force their hand and make them have to make some real change and real development happen. I think I think it couldn't have gone any better, honestly, for Honda to have to be forced to improve itself by Marc leaving. So we're all going to have to wait and see, but I know I will be tuning in for sure. Josh, what you got going on for your second story for today?
So we are talking about Benelli. So they are now going to be distributed in the US by Keeway Group, which is very, very different than what they've done before. So before it was SSR Motorsports. They have been doing the distribution in the US since 2015. Keeway Group, interestingly enough, is co-owner of the Benelli brand, along with China's Quinjiang Group. I know I'm butchering that terribly. So Quinjiang manages Benelli's manufacturing and distribution over in China, but in terms of bringing it over here, it's a very different story. So this actually gives Benelli more control over their U.S. distribution. Why can't I say that word today? Of which there's bikes like the TRK series here, which we all know how hot adventure
Yes.
bikes are. So this one is, what's kind of interesting about it is so they are one of the current largest selling adventure brands in Europe. So
Yes.
being able to bring that over here would be a very interesting thing. The other part of that too is people in the US know that there is a Chinese component to that. So that could be part of the slow pickup. So having a US based direct distributor here could be that key to help open that up. The other thing that I saw too is Keeway scooters will also be reintroduced into the US, which I found kind of interesting. The initial 2024 Benelli models will be arriving in the US the first quarter, which that is coming
No.
up soon. Specifics about
Yeah.
the models headed to North America will be made in the near future. But to me, the fact that they're switching this over, Benelli, just so you know, was founded in 1911 in Pesaro, Italy. I'm sure I'm getting that wrong. They have a storied racing history. And Ashley, if we can go to that last slide that has, I believe, the green bike on it. They had some unbelievably unique bikes like the Tornado Tray pictured here that was released in, I believe this was the early 2000s. This bike actually had a 900cc triple with the radiators underneath where the passenger seat would be. It looked amazing. There was two fans sticking out the back. They still have a lot of this design, and you can see that in that European influence. So I'm hoping that they're able to bring some of that with the bikes like the TRK. It would be interesting to see another one coming back over like this. The Chinese Revolution is kind of happening, Jacqui.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on some of the new competition?
Well, I mean, it seems like there's a handful of trends going on right now that you and I
Yeah.
talk about an awful lot out here. A Chinese manufacturer being one of them. They're making bikes for everybody right now. You know, every single brand,
Everybody.
every single European boutique brand, some American brands. It
Yep.
seems like everybody has an Asian component to what they're doing. It makes sense. You know, if they're gonna sell bikes in that market, they build them in that market in order to keep the prices down or dodge some taxes or whatever they need to do. So anyway, this is not new news. This has been going on for a hot second. Qinjiang Motors makes bikes for everybody, and that was that TRK bike, that
Everyone.
adventure bike, has
Yep.
just turned into a cult bike beast everywhere
Yep.
but here. So I'm really excited for them to possibly be able to have a little bit more
Bring it.
support. I am more of the mindset that when parent companies step in, it's because they are disappointed in what is happening within this
Yep.
market and they want to have a little bit firmer control on it. They want to have a little bit firmer hand on it. Now, does that mean they magically know the market better? Also, possibly no. Our market is very, very different from European and from Asian markets. So we're all going to have to wait and see how this all shakes loose. But I do think it's interesting. And I do think that now that parent companies have stepped in, it means they have deeper pockets and they're willing to
Yep.
push harder. So we're all going to have to wait and see what happens.
I
But
agree.
I love that bike. There's several bikes that have been put out by QJ Motors and Benelli, what, and there's just so many
Yep.
manufacturers right now that are putting out very, very cool bikes out of Asia. So I personally am here for it, and I cannot wait to see them in person in the
Same.
showrooms. You know that the second there is more breaking news out here, we're going to bring you all of those stories here on the program. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. As always, hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that follow, do the things and the stuff, and keep your eyes peeled because we will have another episode coming up here this month. Josh and I are going to be putting together an excellent motorcycle holiday gift guide, and you are not going to want to miss it. So make sure you turn notifications on. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week.